Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. We're back at it again, and we're going to get on into it. But before we do, as always, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. You know, I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. With that being said, here's a quick word from our sponsors. Organic herbs and botanicals, skincare and edibles, wellness for body and mind. The Brothers Apothecary. Fine teas and remedies. Ronald Records. From indie gems to classic hits, discover the heart of local music. With live shows all the time, up close and personal, and regular releases on their in-house label. Ronald Records. Supporting the community, one track at a time. All right, thank you all so much for watching again. Shout out The Brothers Apothecary, Ronald Records, and Portland Water. Thanks for keeping us hydrated. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get on into it. Here is today's guest.
What's good, everybody? It's Lonzo Banks.
Hello. Thank you so much for joining us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, who you are, where you're from, what you do, give us that Tinder profile of your involvement with music.
Yeah, for sure. I'm Lonzo Banks, like I was saying before. I'm from grew up a lot in Tigard, but I'm from California, San Bernardino.
Oh, where at?
San Bernardino.
Oh, sorry.
Nah,
yeah,
you're good.
I'm from the Bay Area myself, so we're
cool.
Yeah, we're neighbors.
I got family up in San Francisco too, but
cool.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Grew up over there for a lot of my childhood, but I grew up over here as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so been around.
Yeah, no, I dig that. And what got you into music initially?
My family's super into music since I was young, mostly oldies and R&B type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, what it was when I was younger, I was trying to be in a band. So
okay.
It got me into it, kind of switched genres a little bit, but
yeah,
right out of high school, I was like, all right, I want to start trying to make something.
Okay.
Or at least
do you play any instruments?
I used to play guitar, acoustic. I still have it. I'm very rusty.
Fair.
I got into production afterwards.
Gotcha. And when did you get into production?
When I tried to record myself kind of right out of high school, I would say.
Okay. And so that kind of just became one of your main staples after that?
Yeah. I'm a rapper, so I kind of just had to learn how to mix myself, and people weren't really sending me beats anymore.
Gotcha.
So I was like, all right. I think there was a little period where my dad was like, you got to get a job. And I was like, cool. And he went out of the country for a little bit, and I just learned how to make beats instead.
Okay. Well, hey, that's one way to do it.
Yeah.
And I guess you said that your family's pretty musical. Does anybody else in your household play instruments or make music, or are they just fans of it?
I think they're just kind of obsessed with it, especially my dad specifically. He's from Honduras.
Mm-hmm.
They're really into bachata music down there and reggaeton.
Mm-hmm.
And so growing up, when Daddy Yankee was coming out, that was all I heard in my house. And
mm-hmm.
a band called Aventura, which I saw this last month over at Moda Center. So
hell yeah.
Fun. They just love it. They grew up around it. I think when I visited Honduras, they got music playing at every house. So
gotcha. Okay. And then before we get into what you're doing with music now, I do have a couple foundation questions I'll check in with everybody on.
Mm-hmm.
This first one, it's one we ask early, it's one we ask often, and it's definitely a crowd favorite. What was the first album you ever bought with your own money?
With my own money, was Arctic Monkeys. Can't remember, but it's the Soundwave.
Yeah.
album.
Okay. Hell yeah.
That was with my own money because I got a car and I didn't have an aux in it. I only had a CD player, and I just went to Target. I kind of picked out the coolest looking one.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was young, from allowance money, it was Nelly, but I can't remember the album name.
Fair.
But I remember my mom only let me listen to track 13 because it was the only one where they didn't have cuss words in it. But when she was gone, I would play the whole thing for sure.
Oh,
but it was Nelly. Yeah.
Well, hopefully she doesn't watch. No, I'm kidding. Hell yeah. No, I dig that. I remember having his Sweat and Suit album and just being like, how could anybody drop 2 albums at the same time?
Yeah.
And then I found out about E40's Day Shift and Night Shift. And I was like, oh, this is just a thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I could dig that.
Yeah.
And then what was one of the first live shows you ever went to that was like specifically one you wanted to go to? So like you saw it was happening, got tickets and went to it.
So the one that I specifically wanted to go to was probably, I went to a Memphis Mayfire concert in high school.
Okay, hell yeah.
That was sick. And then I went to Warped Tour right after that.
Rest in peace, Warped Tour.
Yeah, right. I remember that was my first one I went to. I camped out in the line, pulled up at like 3 a.m.
Oh, damn.
So I got in really early.
Yeah.
But then after that, I transitioned to going to like hip hop shows. So the first one was Joey Badass and Denzel Curry.
Okay.
Wonder Ballroom, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I've heard a couple other people from the show be at that same show. So like, it's definitely, that was a big moment for here for sure.
Yeah, that was my first hip hop show I went to, and also it was crazy. Yeah.
Well, I mean, those are two. I mean, regardless of what time you saw them, those are just two powerful names. You know what I mean? So like to see both of them back to back in whatever order it was in, like that's incredible. That's got to be a defining moment for sure.
Gone to every Denzel show since then in Portland. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, hopefully, let me know when you go to the next one because I would definitely like to be there for that.
Dude, it's good. The last one was with Kid Cudi. It was sick. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going for sure. I finally locked in my tickets to Childish Gambino next month, and I'm so excited about that.
I heard his new album was good.
It's so good.
Yeah.
When Alta Vista got re-released, it definitely like when it officially came out, like it felt good to hear it as like the full thing. But we're not here to talk about him. We're here to talk about you.
For sure.
And before we officially get into what you do in the present day, do you have a defining moment where you decided you wanted to take music more seriously?
It was kind of like just when I started investing in the gear and like the audio equipment. Like I use Logic. So one day I've always been recording out of the homie's bedroom when I was younger. I think we were just on GarageBand with like a AT2020, and I was just like,
wow, what a classic mic.
Yeah, right. I should have kept it just for like a podcast or something or voiceovers, you know. But we went to Guitar Center. I got a gear card. I was like, all right, I'm gonna buy an Apollo. I bought an NT1, I think.
Nice.
And then I bought Logic that day.
Hell yeah.
And then this was probably when I was like 19 or 20.
Oh, which Guitar Center did you go to?
The Tigard one.
Oh.
Or Beaverton.
Boo.
I recently went to the North Portland one, like right across the bridge, I think. And I checked it out, and that place was cool.
I used to work at the Clackamas one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I worked there for like a grip of years.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, but I was just that's neither here nor there.
I used to hang out at the Tigard one all the time. I'd ride my bike there.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that one wasn't bad.
Yeah. It's okay.
Yeah. But that seems like a pretty defining moment for sure. And I guess I don't like to do too many technical questions, but as you are a producer and such, do you still use the Apollo now?
Yeah, that's actually it's what we use at I could say this on camera, but the studio that we're opening up, yeah, that's okay. That's our main interface that we use.
Hell yeah. Is it the Rack Apollo or is it the Desk Apollo?
It's the twin, the desk one.
Hell yeah. No, that again, not going to get into gear super heavy, but I appreciate when they did, like when they made that version, how they still made it expandable. And so like it still sounds good, but you can still get a lot more out of it in the future. So that's a fun unit for sure.
Dude, I'm learning how to use it now. I've had it for like 6 years, but it wasn't until I met the homie Frano where he was just like, you have shout out Frano for sure. He's like, you have an Apollo? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, can we use it? And then now we're working together a lot. So
hell yeah.
It worked out for everybody.
Hell yeah. Well, definitely looking forward to what y'all are putting together there. But let's go ahead and get on into you in the present day.
Yeah.
We are going to knock out a super easy one. How'd you pick the name?
So growing up, my middle name is Alonzo, and I don't know, I was a little Hispanic kid growing up, and people would like call me Alonzo, and hearing that too much, it was kind of like, I wasn't crazy. And then I guess when I grew up, it's kind of like growing into like what my name is and being like happy that that's my name. So I just shortened it Lonzo, and my original name was I Hate Brian D. And I was like, that was a little foolish, but that's what people from Portland at least know me as when I was doing shows. And then I was like, Lonzo Banks just had a cool ring to it.
Yeah.
And it's my name. So.
Oh, well then, yeah, easy. So your last name is Banks?
No.
Oh, okay. I was
that'd be cool.
I was like, hold on a second.
No, Alonzo is my name. Banks was just, I don't know, it sounded cool at the time.
Hell yeah. No, I dig that.
I'm not going to lie. I was working at a bank at the time, but I don't think that had any correlation.
Well, hey, either way, it is a super cool name. It's easy to spell. It's easy to remember. It looks good. Like I do this bit where I break down people's names, and as it kind of checks all the boxes for being like functional, but still, like, it feels like a regular name, which is nice. I always think it's wild when people go with like these super abstract ones where they're like, yeah, I've got 14 L's and 3 of them are silent. And you're like, what?
Yeah, it's a first last name. Quick.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. I had a homie named Fredo, and he went by Fredo Hunnids, and I was like, oh. Like, the first last name sounds kind of sick. I should probably go with something like that. Yeah.
It's got a good twist to it. Like, there's an artist that I just recently interviewed named Dante Harris. And neither of those are his real name. But it just feels like a regular name.
There's a ring to it.
Yeah. So it definitely works. But now let's go ahead and let's talk about your writing process.
Yeah.
And we're going to break it up into chunks, but we're going to start right at the beginning. So when you get inspired, you're ready to make music. What are some of the things you do to get a track started?
I mean, it kind of depends. If I'm making beats, then it's one thing. Like, I usually would like to be surrounded with like the homies. So probably like 1 or 2 people in the room, and then we're just kind of feeling a vibe out and seeing like what catches our ear first, and then building off of that. If I'm working with a producer or something, if they start making a beat in front of me, and just kind of like the first flow that comes to my head is like, all right, I'll just keep humming it to myself. And I'm the type of dude where I grew up writing. A lot of people now are like either freestyling or they'll do like line for line, but I grew up with kind of like pen and paper type vibes.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit old school in that sense, but just for me, it's finding the flow. Usually I'll find like the third line before I even think of the first one, with like songwriting. And then it's kind of like filling in the blanks for me. But I was a very big A-B guy beforehand. Now it's just kind of like trying to find a line that sounds really good at the end, like a punchline almost, and then kind of flowing into it and trying to do it differently, I guess.
Gotcha. Hell yeah. No, I dig that. And then do you ever make beats for other people, or do you mainly just make beats for you?
I make beats for myself a lot. I make beats for the homie Daniel. He goes by Vino. And my little my prodigy Zay. That's this kid that I used to record when he was like 15, 16. And we were trying to start a label probably like 5 years ago, and I've made a lot of beats for him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, that's cool. And I guess it's nice that you kind of get to be in the process even when you're like not doing it for you a little bit now.
Yeah, and I get to see the very beginning and end. I mean, it's really different working on myself, because if I'm like with people, I'll usually start it, and then if they're recording, I'll record while they're there. But when they leave, I was the type of person to be like, all right, now let me try that like 10 more times.
Yeah.
Try to get the perfect one. So working with another engineer has been very interesting for me, because it's kind of letting go of that. But, seeing the process from the beginning to the end on somebody else and how their writing goes, it's cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that you still do. Do you like actually do pen to paper where you like write it out, or have you switched over to like that?
I'm on notes.
Okay, yeah.
Actually, I made fun of my friend because he was the one who would do pen and paper. I was mostly notes, but he would ask to borrow my flashlight on my phone, because I don't remember what he was using his phone for, but he'd be like, we had a mic set up in the closet, horrible, but
the classic.
But it's classic, and he'd be like, can I borrow your flashlight, bro? And he'd be like reading off of his paper. Yeah, that'll bend. That was funny.
Yeah. No, I think nowadays I think it's so accessible. There's not really a right or wrong way to do it, but I always kind of prescribe to the like physically writing whenever it came to words, because there's that mnemonic of like physically writing it kind of puts it in your brain a little bit better.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but for me, like lyrics have always been, I pay attention to it so much that if I write a verse, let's say, and it took me like 10 to 30 minutes or whatever, by the time I'm done, like that thing is recited in my head. And I've heard a lot of artists say that. That's why they're like, I don't write no more, because by the time I'm done, I remember it. But
yeah,
I mean, for me, even just like the typing in the phone, like, yeah, it sticks.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's the same I think it's kind of partly what you grew up with too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't have a cell phone as a young kid.
Yeah,
so like
true.
That I just learned that before I like ever got my hands on typing. And sometimes I'll like type on the phone to like come up with like the gist of it, and then switch over to pen and paper to like rewrite it and flush it out.
Lock it down. Yeah.
First or like final draft. But again, that's neither here nor there on my part of the process.
I hope no one finds my my little black journals. I would write it. In high school, I was for sure pen and paper kind of
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, they wouldn't let you pull your phone out a lot, so it was
yeah, I had a little.
Yeah, I'm working.
Those leather moleskins. I had one of those small ones
classic.
Yeah.
And then once you get a track finished writing, so it doesn't have to be like released per se, but once you've gotten it to where you've got the whole thing down, you're ready to put it down, how long does it usually take you to get comfortable to the point where you feel like you can perform it?
I am the type of person where once I make a song, I listen to it so much. So if I made a song like yesterday, probably like the next day, I would be like comfortable at least doing it in front of like the homies and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting question. For me, it's always like I've been working on these songs for like, let's say like I made it maybe like a week. I'd be ready to do it like right after. I don't know. I listen to my songs so often after they're made. Especially once they're mixed, I'm like, I'm hyped.
Yeah, no, I dig that. And actually, I was checking out some of your music because that's what we do on the show here. And you've got music going back to 2020 on Spotify with a bit of a stop after 2022 at the moment. But I know you've got a new album coming out in September, which I'm super excited about.
Yeah.
But your sound is super clean. Like that's the first thing that stood out to me. Like your beats are tight, your flow is dialed, and like it's lax, but it's not loose. You know what I mean? Like it feels like you can just kind of live in that comfortable space and kind of the in-between where it's like you're comfortable, but you know what the beat needs.
Nice.
And I do this bit where I pick out a personal track that I enjoyed.
Okay.
And I chose What's Real.
Dude, you know what's funny is that's everyone's what they go to.
I know it's an earlier one, but it has something to it. Like there's this bounce in your voice and these little inflections, and it really exemplifies what I think is a good example of your sound.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
But it's a super cool track. I am curious to know though, what are some of your favorite songs of yours?
A lot of my favorite songs are like the new ones that are coming out. Back when I was making music with the homie Fredo, we had an album called Hall Boulevard come out that we were performing in Portland a lot. Like we do one show and then someone would advise us to do another one. So we were just kind of like, it was my first time doing that, and it was with the homie I grew up with. But we had a song called Losing It. And that's on SoundCloud now. We took it off of Apple Music and Spotify, but that one's one of my favorites. What's Real has a special place in my, that was when the pandemic started. So I think I had COVID during that time, and I was just by myself for like a month. And I was like, all right, you know what? I think at the beginning I say I'm sipping on a beer right now, but I miss the homies. Because that's what it was, is making music with my friends. So right now, new stuff coming out, like I would say Pesos is one.
Hell yeah.
One of these days I'll have to show you some of the new stuff, but
yeah, please do. Well, I mean, next month I'll be able to check it all out, and I'm definitely looking forward to that.
Yeah, for sure.
And then actually, let's talk about some of your new music. Now, obviously, it's not available for people to check out yet, but what can we look forward to? Like, how is it stylistically different? How have you gone about putting it together? Just like kind of describe some of the new music to us.
So it kind of like piggybacking on what you said earlier, how everything sounded clean. The new stuff, I think, sounds super clean. I think that's once I started working with other engineers, not to say that like I didn't know what I was doing, but it was more like me kind of like learning myself how to do everything. Yeah. And now I'm catching a lot of game from other engineers. So shout out Frano from the North, shout out Hennessy, because I've been working specifically with Frano, on like the vocal engineering and seeing how he makes a beat really like stand out. That's probably what I would say about the production is there. And yeah, I mean, all I had to do was come in and be an artist, and that's kind of like the first time I've been able to do that.
Yeah, no, and that's such a defining thing to be able to do. Like I talk about it off camera a lot. I don't bring it on to here too much, but like the opportunity to like refine what you're doing versus like feeling like you have to push every button and turn every knob and wear 1,000 hats. Like it's such a good moment of growth. Like you really like when you get to sit down and be like, oh, I've been doing it this way. Why don't I try it that way? Or, oh, this has been working, but there's also this available. Let me try it.
Yeah. And I'm hearing myself in a way that I haven't heard myself before, because I would have never done that. So like letting someone else take the wheel and being like, all right, like watch this and then see how it turns out. Yeah. It's a trusting process for sure, but it has turned out better, I think.
Well, that, and even they can introduce ideas that, like you said, you wouldn't have thought of, but like you can attempt things that you wouldn't have thought of either. They can be like, hey, I hear this, you should try this. And then you get a chance to try it. And sometimes both of you go, nah. And sometimes one of you go, yeah. And the other goes, nah. But then when you both go, that's one of those things where you can learn so much, even by accident. Like
there's that look you give each other when you're like, oh, like that was it. Yeah.
That's such a good feeling.
Yeah.
And now let's take a moment and let's zoom out. We're going to look at kind of music as a whole. What are some of the things about either new music in general, or if you're not one of those people that listens to the most current stuff, stuff that's new to you that you enjoy and you're finding inspiration in?
I was the type of guy, like when I had a home studio, I would be sitting in there, and before I work on anything, I would be just on YouTube, and whatever popped up, would be that's how I got new music.
Okay.
I haven't been able to do that as much because my studio is a little bit further and I didn't have one for a super long time. But Hit Boy is a producer and he's made a lot of beats for people. And then when he started making his own music, I was like, that is sick because I felt the same, you know? It's like making your own music instead of just sending beats out. So I thought that was really cool. I lived in California for a long time. So Dom Kennedy's one of those things that I get inspiration from just because he's like a legend over there. Nipsey was a good one. Mostly West Coast artists. I mean, before I was really into East Coast stuff, so I'd be rapping on like West Coast beats, but it'd be like coming at it from like a different perspective. So, but yeah, no, lately it's been a lot of West Coast things.
Oh yeah, no, I dig that.
And I love R&B music too, so that's another one. I like Bryson Tiller.
Oh yeah,
Janae Aiko, like
Bryson. If you ever want to be on the show,
yeah, I went to his show last year in Forest Grove, I think, and that was a cool experience.
Hell yeah. Are you gonna try and bring in any like more R&B-ish influences for this new album?
So yeah, my boy Zay is he raps as well, but he's a singer. So a lot of the stuff that I did with him was more like R&B-esque. So he's got a hook on there for sure. And then Henny sent me a beat that is I've posted snippets of it, but it's a TLC sample.
Okay.
And I mean, it's definitely a rap song, but like I don't know, just having that little familiarity. Like I've played it for people, and they're just like, "Wait a minute, I've heard this," and then I'm like, "Yeah, you have."
Hell yeah! No, definitely looking forward to that. Now, before we get into this next portion, I've got one last question to go in this middle bit, and it's probably the densest question in the interview. But we've talked a lot about your experience with music, the actions, the reactions. But when it's just you and the music one-on-one, what does music give back to you?
It's just like feeling, dude. Yeah. I would like if I'm just not doing anything, I'd have like headphones on and just like kind of feel the music out and the vibe. I know we kind of talked about this, but like I'm trying to find a way to describe it. It's just, I don't know, the emotions that the artist is going through, like you feel them once you listen to it for a certain amount of time. And kind of, I guess, the memories too. Like when you listen to certain things, you'd be like, this is the point of my life where I was feeling like that. So it could be like a really great moment or like a bad moment, but at the end of the day, it's still something that there's a lot of emotion behind it. So yeah, constantly, if I'm not listening to my own music, I'm listening to someone else's for sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I could dig that. I mean, I think that's one of the big recurring themes for here is that like music is such a like powerful force, but it is one that's so like heavily attached to memory. And I think that's something that for making music in particular, I think is really important for people to remember, because like every time I've listened to a song that I've made in the past, I like remember that day. Like I remember everything that went into it. And same thing with like music. Like I try not to listen to too much older music. I'm always trying to find new stuff all the time. Yeah. But when I go and like sit down with those like albums I grew up with, I'm always just like, I remember the day I found this album. Yeah. Like I was like 15 and I can still be like, I remember that.
There would be times where I'm like driving and I just put my phone on shuffle most of the time. But, and I've had the same like iTunes account since I was in high school. So something will pop up from then and I'll try to hit skip, but I'm like, I don't know if I can.
You just can't. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I'm a big album person personally. Like so if I start an album, even if it's like a short, like 10-minute drive, that 10-minute drive back, I'm going to pick up the album where it left off. If I'm not going anywhere else for the rest of the day, I'm going to put it on at home and finish it. Like
that's the type of person I am too. I have to listen to the whole thing.
Yeah. Cause it's just like there's a progression in it. And that's, we talked about that a little off camera too, about just like the design of an album being so intentional for its reasons. But
yeah, of course. Yeah.
All right. But now we're going to go ahead and move on to this next portion, which is all hypothetical questions. And for these, sky's the limits. The questions are all made up, so the answers are allowed to be as well.
Okay.
But this first one is pretty straightforward. If you could work with any one person, the only requirement is they have to be alive. Who would you want to work with, and how would you want to work with them?
Yeah, no, I saw that question when I was watching an interview, and I was like, I don't even know. Like, it's tough. It'd be cool. Have you ever seen that thing where it's like, would you rather take this much money or have like a dinner with Jay-Z? One of those. So being in the room with Jay-Z would be sick. There's a producer named Tiny, and he does reggaeton music. I would definitely love to be in the room with him while he's working on a beat. And just like, I don't even know if I could contribute anything like that to it. Maybe like, be like, hey, bro, that snare needs to hit a little hard, like, But getting a beat from that man would be insane for sure. So those are probably like my two. Or Denzel. It would be just being in the room with him would be cool.
If that was going to be one of the answers.
Yeah.
But no, those are all super solid choices.
Yeah.
And then subsequently, who's a local artist that you're aware of that you haven't gotten to connect with yet, but you would like to?
Back in the day, I was trying to work. Me and I remember you were saying you had Wayne on the show. And I saw him on there. I'd like to work with him because we've never gotten the chance to. Like, we've sat down in a room and started things, but never finished. That would be one.
Oh yeah, shout out Wayne.
Yeah, and I kind of already got the other one, which is Frano. Because I don't want to reveal too much, but there's some verses that we trade. Like, I'm on one of his beats and he's on one of mine, so I thought that was cool.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Other than that, I mean, I'm kind of just like new to listening to the scene again because I was gone for so long. But those are probably like the two right now.
Oh yeah. And then for this next one, like I said before, sky's the limit, and it's pretty literal in this sense. But if you could perform anywhere in the world, you wouldn't have to worry about crowd access or building stability or power. Guaranteed the best lineup, guaranteed the best show. And it doesn't have to be a venue. It could be anywhere. Where would you want to perform?
Dude, when I was, I think 20, I went to Honduras for the first time. And there's this week over there called Semana Santas, which is like Holy Week. And the beach is just packed with clubs. But it's like set up outside, so each one is like kind of like a tent that you walk into, and then so doing something there would be so sick. Like, one of the places literally had a stage. So
damn.
Yeah, and people are dancing and just drinking, having a good time. And so that would probably be on the beach, I think. Yeah.
That actually sounds super rad.
Yeah, it's in Puerto Cortez.
Oh yeah. And then to wrap up the hypothetical questions, if you could get one more album from anybody, they could be alive, they could be dead, they could have not put out an album in 100 years, they could have put out an album yesterday.
Yeah.
Who would you want an album from?
Well, this is tough, actually. This is an answer that I had already heard, but Doom was a really big one because I would listen to his instrumentals all the time. So even just hearing the beats would be sick.
Yeah.
Or Nipsey, another Nipsey album would for sure be it. Yeah.
Hell yeah. All right. And with that being said, we're going to go ahead and start wrapping this up. I know we already kind of touched on it, but what can we look forward to between now and let's say February? Yeah.
So for sure, on my birthday, September 16th, I'm going to be dropping an album. It's called My Father Named Me Alonzo. We got a album release showcasing. It's album release party. It's going to be September 13th in Vancouver. So that's going to be fun. I got some flyers printed out for it. I'm going to try to post everywhere. And we got some cool openers for it too. We're just kind of like investing in putting together an actual showcase where people can pull up and have a good time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Definitely play the whole album. So yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. I may, maybe I'll show up to that.
Yeah, dude, it'll be a good time for sure. I'm gonna be tired.
No, I can imagine.
Yeah.
And then for this next one, go and look straight at the camera. Tell everybody how they can find you.
You can find me on Instagram or Twitter, anything. It's just Lonzo Banks _. If you look up Lonzo Banks on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, you'll find me at just Lonzo Banks.
Oh yeah. And then any other plugs, any other shout outs, anybody else you want to put on while you're on here?
Shout out Frano, because that dude has changed a lot for me in the past like 6 months, I would say, and how music is getting made. Shout out Henny, because he's a dope engineer that I've been working with, and I'm excited to work with him more. And then shout out the homies. I mean, Bad Habits is the label we were trying to start. We got a clothing brand that we do called Habits. So shout out Daniel, shout out Zay.
Oh yeah. All right. With that being said, we've got one last question to go. But before we do, I'm going to steal the camera for just a second.
Yeah, for sure.
As always, y'all, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. And one more shout out to the Brothers Apothecary, Ronald Records, and Portland Water. Thanks for keeping us hydrated. And with that being said, the final question. And this is entirely up to your interpretation. But what is an album you feel is more on the obscure side? So it's a deep cut. It's one not a lot of people would know. It's one you think everybody should know.
I like Zoo by Denzel. I think a lot of people didn't really listen to that as much as they should have. That was really good. Yeah, I don't know. The production was crazy. Wish is insane, so that just kind of made the album alone. Yeah, that would probably be off the top of my head, I think.
Oh yeah, no, that's a quality rec. If y'all haven't listened to that, you definitely should.
That was also the first time when he said he put the like writing down. Yeah, I saw that in an interview. He was like, that's just like when I let my mind to the mic hit. And I was just like, okay, well, no, that sounds really good.
Oh yeah.
That was a good one.
Like I said, that's a super solid rec. All right, but with that being said, we're going to go and wrap this up. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, bro. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah. And this has been another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. I'm Jimmy.
I'm Lonzo Banks.
And we're signing off. Later, y'all.
That's a wrap.
This is not a podcast. This is a show.
Keep jamming.